the last word.
Since I got my Nintendo Wii at Christmas, I've watched very little television. The television set's been switched on, but there's been lots of game playing going on in the house instead. But am I like so many others? Are there many people out there who got consoles or got new games for their existing consoles over Christmas who are getting a little bit hooked? Now, our resident gamer Danny O'Dwyer is with us. Hello to you, Danny.
Hey, Kevin.
Very good. Did you ever get addicted to any particular game?
Well, in many ways, I suppose I'm addicted to all games, but one particularly that I had a lot of experience with, that I had a bit of trouble getting away from, is a very famous game by the name of World of Warcraft. Essentially, unlike many other games, it exists in its own sort of universe. It's a world that's constantly on all the time. As we're speaking now, there's people playing it. And basically, it's almost like a parallel to real life. You go into this game, you start off as a low-level character, and you progress during the game. And because of this, there's lots of parallels with real life in terms of you're improving your character, improving the wealth that he has, and accumulating items. And what I found was that through playing this game, I was enjoying myself playing the game more than I did at the time of my life when I was in college, and I was almost compensating one life with the other by improving myself in one game, and it was almost like a double-edged sword then, because essentially the more time you spend playing the game, the less well off you are in your real life. And there's sort of a joke in online gaming circles where people refer to real life as RL, but it shows the sort of dichotomy between these two worlds, that people genuinely do think that games like these, online games especially, exist, and that they are something that people invest time in, and as such sort of get addicted to over a long period of time.
Why did you give up World of Warcraft? What persuaded you to give it up?
To be honest, I think it was I started playing in January when I was in college, and then when college eventually finished up at the start of summer, I felt like I wasn't hanging around with the same people who I was playing the game with. We used to play on lunchtime in school, in college, and then obviously then it came to the fact where, that lecture is not important, let's go play some WoW, or it's Saturday, let's go play some Warcraft. But when it came to summer, then obviously I had to get a job, and I had more spare time, and I sort of drifted back into the real world. And when I decided to sort of stop playing it completely, you pay a monthly subscription for many of these games, and I felt like, okay, it's not warranting this whatever €13 a month. I'll just quit for a while. And as such, then I had a load of spare time to fill up, so I started running again, and I started playing more sports. And I had actually accumulated quite a lot of weight.
How much?
Through playing this game. I weighed 3 stone, Matt.
3 stone?
Yeah, there's a lot of sitting down and eating. You still have to eat when you're playing these games, naturally. And when there's nothing else to do, especially when you're waiting around for people for specific raids or objectives, you just sit about and eat.
And you lost 3 stone by quitting?
Indeed, but by the next time I was back in college the next year, I had actually lost all that weight quite quickly and quite easily, because I had so much spare time left on me.
What about the other games that you play now? Are you on an Xbox or a Game Station or PlayStation, or what are you on?
Absolutely, I play my Xbox 360 quite a lot, and you do find that lots of games nowadays, before, a decade ago, Matt, you'll find most games had a beginning and an end. So once you completed the game, you had to, get more money to buy a new game to play it. But lots of games now are sandbox games like Grand Theft Auto, or, say, a game like Halo 3, where you can go online and play with people. And there is no specific end to these games, just like massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft. So you can invest a lot more time into these. And you'll see companies now are being very clever about this. They don't necessarily charge subscriptions, but they definitely want you to spend as much time on their console as possible. So you have a situation now where Microsoft have introduced achievement points to their console. So every game that you play, every retail game you buy, has a possibility of having 1,000 of these achievement points. And all these do are, you've an online identity on Xbox Live, basically your name and where you're from, and a simple profile. But there's a numerical value attached to that, which is representing how many games you've played and how well you've done in these. So you'll have people now who will play games on their Xbox simply to get these points, so that their number goes up, and that in the eyes of other people, or not necessarily, but in the eyes of many people, that when they see this gamer score, they'll go, wow, he's really good at games. And that's basically it. But it's having this insane effect of people playing games just to get points, and people not necessarily sort of playing their Xbox instead of their Wii games because they can get points for it.
Keith Bakker is with us as well, director of the Smith & Jones Games Addiction Centre in Holland. Good evening to you, Keith.
Good evening.
Keith, when we think of addiction, we think of alcohol and we think of drugs like cocaine and heroin. Are there serious addictive problems in relation to these innocent, harmless games?
Well, I don't think. I mean, for a big part of the gaming population, these games are harmless and innocent. It's important to start out with saying that. I mean, in principle, there's nothing wrong with games. However, it seems that 15-20% of all of the total amount of gamers, they develop some kind of obsessive compulsive sort of dependence on these games, and then it becomes a very, very serious problem.
What causes that dependence?
Well, I mean, addiction is something that's been around for thousands of years, and I think it's not that it's a new dependence. I think it's a new substance. And because of, I mean, IT is a wonderful thing, and games can be a wonderful thing, but, every rose has its thorn. Now, what I just heard, and it's really great to hear what Danny, is that right?
That's right, Danny, yes.
Yeah, Danny, I mean, it was great to hear Danny talking now because, I mean, he's got a lot of insight into what's going on. Because, I mean, he's experienced it firsthand. Because what gaming is about, just like any addiction, it's about changing the way I feel. It's about escaping reality. And that's what these games are all about. It's a whole other world. So these people, and we get kids, and we've treated hundreds of people in our clinics with really sort of I don't want to say life-threatening, but gaming has really sort of destroyed their lives. We've treated many of these kids, and these kids come into the clinics, and their entire self-esteem is based on virtual reality.
Kids, how young?
Now, the youngest I've ever met was 6 years old. His mother dragged him in because she couldn't get him off the game. But we don't actually take somebody into treatment if they're under 15. But we've had between 15 and 25 is pretty much the group that we get.
And how do you treat them? Is it a bit like the old cold turkey treatment where you just literally confiscate their consoles and put them in a darkened room?
Well, we've been doing it now for a number of years, and in the beginning we really didn't know how to deal with it. So, we separated them from the other addicts, and then eventually what we did is for some of the groups we actually put them together with other people suffering from other addictions. And what you then began to see is the light bulbs started popping above their heads because they realized that they weren't actually different than someone maybe even with a cocaine or even a heroin problem. Basically, once they started, they couldn't stop. Their life, it was becoming unmanageable because of their gaming behavior, and they continued to do it anyway. And all of these negative consequences were piling up, and they continued to play. That's why Danny, I mean, he gained 3 stone. I mean, it takes a while to do that. And eventually, he got to the point where he did something about it. What I also heard Danny say is that he's still playing games. I don't know if that's true or not.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying as well, Keith, but I think when you're a game player, it's almost like you watch television when you come home, or you play games when you come home, or you read books, or you do anything. So I think that I definitely agree that there are people who would maybe not consider themselves addicted to television or to any form of medium, but I'm almost happily addicted to games.
Danny, how many hours a day would you spend playing games?
Well, personally, Matt, I do this as sort of it's almost my second job because I do it as journalism. So personally, I probably spend between 4 and 5 hours playing games, either for research purposes, but mostly for fun
research purposes. Keith, does he have a problem? Does he need treatment?
Well, Danny, he has said I am happily addicted, and I mean, 95% of the alcoholics in the world are happily addicted. Only 5% are actually in treatment centers. So I mean, it's under control, and Danny seems to be living his life. And he knows he's addicted. He knows that eventually he could end up in trouble, but he's got it under control. So God bless him. I mean, but what I will offer Danny now, if Danny ever decides to do something about it, I will offer him free treatment in Smith & Jones in Amsterdam if he wants to come down.
Any excuse to go to Amsterdam, Keith.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, you'll come in and then run away.
But if it wasn't free treatment, Keith, how much would you charge somebody for a session?
It depends on the situation. It's between a few £1,000s, and it can be up to 15,000, 20,000. But that's really long-term serious behavior. I mean, we've had kids that were playing 18 to 24 hours a day for sometimes 3 days in a row. So, the problem can be really, really, really serious. It depends on what level we get them at.
And final question to you, Keith Bakker. Would you play any of these games yourself?
Not a chance in the world. Not a chance in the world.
Why not?
Look, well, I'm old school, I used to drink a lot and did a lot of drugs a million years ago. But from what I've seen now, put it this way: 3 years ago, we had gamers come in, and they'd tell me they couldn't stop gaming, and I'd look at them and I'd say, "Come on, give me a break. What are you talking about?" Now, I think it's unbelievably serious, and the consequences an alcoholic who has an alcohol problem, I mean, they drive their car in the water, or they get in a fight or so. I mean, there's a very obvious, damage that's happening to them. But the gamers, the problem, I've had kids come in, highly intelligent, full scholarships to really good universities, and they just don't go to school anymore. Now, the long-term damage from gaming can be actually far greater than even from drugs or alcohol.
Okay. Danny O'Dwyer, does any of that put you off? Will you scale back now some of your gaming?
I totally agree. And the sad thing is, both Keith and Matt, that I've seen friends of mine that have done this, and I've done it myself, and you can see it happening to so many people. But I think I'm blessed now with the knowledge of seeing when to stop and seeing when too much of my life is being invested in them. But no, I think I'll be playing Wii Sports when I'm on my deathbed, let's say.
I think I might as well. Danny O'Dwyer and Keith Bakker from the Smith & Jones Games Addiction Centre in Holland, thank you both very much for joining us. 53102 is the number for your comments.
100 to 102 Today FM, the last word with O2. It's